Jamboree Scouts are leaving the Saemangeum campsite to continue their exploration of Korea in other areas of the country. Today, we met some young British Scouts who took the time on their visit to Korea to remember the sacrifice of British soldiers during the Korean War. The nation is bracing for the approaching Typhoon Khanun, which could sweep through the peninsula, bringing torrential rain and gusting winds later this week. South Korea logged another current account surplus in June as imports fell greater than exports. It's August 8, 2023. This is News Center. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. Young scouts gathered in South Korea's Saemangeum area have now left the campsite as Typhoon Khanun approaches. Putting aside disappointment, they will continue their exploration of Korea in other parts of the country. Choi Soo-hyung starts us off.
Starting Tuesday morning, all remaining participants at the World Scout Jamboree began leaving the Saemangeum campsite. The government stated that the decision to have them leave was made to ensure participants' safety as Typhoon Khanun is heading towards South Korea. Also, the government announced that they will activate their contingency plan for their departure and accommodation.
The total number of individuals is around 36,000 from 156 countries, and more than 1,000 buses are expected to be used.
The government has announced that they have prepared 4 police helicopters and approximately 270 police cars to escort the buses. The whole evacuation process was estimated to take around 6 hours.
They are disappointed to be leaving, but I think they understand the reasoning why.
A total of 128 sites, including university dormitories across 8 provinces and cities nationwide, will be used as emergency accommodation, not just to provide lodging, but also to experience Korean culture. This includes 17 in Seoul, 64 in Gyeonggi-do province, and 18 in Chungcheongnam-do province. The government has stated that it will do all it can to ensure the safety of the Scout members during the time they have left in the country and make sure they get the most out of the experience. Moreover, the postponed K-pop concert will be held at Seoul World Cup Stadium at 7 p.m. on Friday, right after the closing ceremony. The stadium can accommodate around 66,000 people, and the Cultural Ministry says the lineup will soon be confirmed. And so, although the Scots were unable to finish their planned activities in Saemangeum, they will spend the rest of their trip in other parts of the country. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
As part of the Scout program for those who pulled out of the event, Jamboree participants from Britain had an opportunity to remember the sacrifice of British soldiers during the Korean War. Our Choi Min-jung met them.
A variety of tourism programs are being put on for World Scout Jamboree participants who decided to leave the Saemangeum camping site located on South Korea's west coast. As one of the alternative programs, the Ministry of Patriots and Veterans Affairs on Tuesday launched a 3-day peace camp for British Scouts so that they can still get the most out of their time in South Korea. Around 1,200 British Scouts are participating in the program until Thursday, where they will learn about the contribution of British soldiers who fought in the Korean War. Their first stop is Gloucester Hill Memorial Park in Paju. It was built in memory of the British soldiers who fought and died during the Battle of the Imjin River in 1951. Putting aside their disappointment, the Scouts pay tribute to their British military service members who sacrificed their lives during the Korean War.
It's an honour to be here. I'm speechless, to be honest with you, but it's an absolute honour to be here and to represent the UK as well is to be amazing.
I think it's great being able to experience this Korean culture, and it's nice to learn about it and see how the Koreans feel about it and see our involvement in it.
The program meant a lot to the unit leader, as his grandfather actually fought in the Korean War.
Very emotional for me because he died last year, and also he was the first Scouter in our family. So to come to Korea with the Scouts and to be able to do this, incredibly special.
The Jamboree members also took a tour of the War Memorial of Korea and visited Seoul National Cemetery. The Veterans Minister said he hopes that the program will be a precious opportunity for the young British Scouts to experience South Korea, a country that was built through the sacrifice and dedication of troops 70 years ago. Nearly 4,500 British Scouts, the largest group of all the Scout contingents currently visiting South Korea, left the Jamboree site in Saemangeum for Seoul over the weekend, amid mounting safety concerns stemming from a sweltering heatwave and the oncoming typhoon. Choi Min-jang, Arirang News.
The sixth typhoon of the season, Khanun, is expected to make landfall on South Korea on Wednesday. Government authorities are now on high alert, raising its typhoon alert level to the highest serious. Kim Mo-gyun reports.
Typhoon Khanun is expected to make landfall on South Korea's southern coast as early as late Wednesday and proceed northward to North Korea, putting the entire peninsula under its influence through Saturday. The Korean Meteorological Administration says Khanun, which was heading north from the waters of Japan's Kagoshima as of Tuesday, is expected to first reach waters off South Korea's southernmost Jeju Island at 9 p.m. on Wednesday. Weather experts say once it makes landfall, the typhoon may remain very strong in intensity, with its central pressure forecast at 970 hectopascals and maximum wind speeds of up to 126 kilometers per hour. It's also expected to dump downpours of up to 500 milliliters nationwide. Weather agencies worldwide have forecast the typhoon to move towards the west as it ascends, which means there's a high chance of it directly affecting the capital region by late Thursday. Government authorities held a Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures Headquarters meeting on Tuesday to discuss prevention measures. It raised its 4-tier typhoon alert level to the highest serious and initiated a level 3 emergency operation of the Disaster Response Headquarters, which is also the highest. Officials called for all-out measures and regular checks on areas and facilities vulnerable to the rain, such as reservoirs, riversides, and underground parking lots. In the event of a flood, support will also be given to people with disabilities and senior citizens who live alone. The government will keep citizens aware of necessary forecasts regarding the typhoon and provide appropriate instructions through text messages and public broadcasts. As of 3 p.m. Tuesday, a typhoon advisory has been issued in coastal areas surrounding Jeju Island. The weather agency forecasts that warnings could expand to the upper parts of the country by Thursday. Kim Mo-gyun, Arirang News.
As Japan could start releasing Fukushima wastewater sooner than later, the Korean government says there's been a substantial degree of consensus during the latest working level meeting with Tokyo. This as President Yoon had earlier requested to have South Korean experts join in monitoring. Bae Eun-ji has more.
The government explained Tuesday that a certain degree of consensus has been reached regarding Seoul's request concerning Tokyo's wastewater release plan during a virtual meeting held the day before between officials from South Korea and Japan.
Considerable consensus was reached yesterday at the working level on ways to implement what was discussed during the latest summit between the leaders of South Korea and Japan.
He also said that another round of working-level talks will be held before finalizing ways to cooperate on the matter, and said this meeting will be scheduled through diplomatic channels. The two sides held their first round of such talks in Tokyo in late July, after President Yoon made 3 requests to Prime Minister Fumio Kishida during their summit on July 12. First, to include South Korean experts in monitoring the Fukushima wastewater release, second, to share monitoring information in real time, and third, to halt the release process if the concentration of radioactive materials surpasses agreed-upon levels. Tuesday's remarks come a day after Japanese media reported that Tokyo plans to start releasing wastewater from the destroyed Fukushima nuclear power plant as soon as late August. Citing unnamed government sources, the Yomiuri and Asahi Shimbun said the release will likely come shortly after Prime Minister Kishida meets with U.S. President Joe Biden and President Yoon Suk-yeol next Friday for a 3-way summit in Washington, where Kishida is expected to explain that the wastewater is indeed safe. But a senior official from Seoul's foreign ministry reportedly said the 3 countries have not discussed whether or not to include the wastewater issue on the agenda for the trilateral summit. Bae Eun-ji, Arirang News.
On the local economic front, Korea's current account remained in the black for the second month in a row in June as imports dropped deeper than exports. Our correspondent Shin Ha-young covers the latest findings.
South Korea's current account was in the black again in June. Preliminary data released by the Bank of Korea on Tuesday shows the country posted a current account surplus of $5.87 billion. This is the second straight month that a surplus was recorded, and it was even greater than in the month before. The surplus growth comes on the back of wider gains in trade and investment. The goods balance, which tracks the imports and exports, saw a surplus of $3.98 billion in June, recording a surplus for the third consecutive month. The country exported around $54 billion worth of goods, an on-year decrease of 9.3%, plunging for the 10th month in a row. By category, shipments of chips, petroleum products, and industrial chemical products slipped, while auto exports rose by over 60% from the previous year. On the other hand, the drop in imports was greater than that of exports, as the cost of importing raw materials dropped due to lower energy prices. A rise in dividend income from Korean subsidiaries located overseas also contributed to the current account surplus. Meanwhile, the deficit in the service account, which tracks earnings and spending on overseas trips and transport, came to around $2.6 billion as more people traveled abroad. The accumulated account balance for the first half of this year is in the black by some $2.4 billion.
Even under challenging external conditions, the fact that the trade balance has maintained a surplus in the first half of a year for 12 years in a row holds significance. Unlike the initial projections of a deficit in the first half of this year, the country performed well.
Regarding the outlook for the current account in the second half of 2023, the experts said that it's difficult to forecast due to the uncertainties such as global oil prices, the pace of economic recovery in major countries, including China, and recovery in the IT industry. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
China's exports recorded a double-digit on-year plunge again in July, this time by 14.5%. According to China's Customs Administration on Tuesday, exports last month fell to $281 billion, the worst fall since the onset of COVID-19 pandemic in February 2020. Exports dropped back sharply starting from May this year after an upturn in March and April, while imports dipped by 12.4% in July, one of the biggest declines in recent years. China's global trade surplus was reduced by over 20% in July from a year earlier. Russian missiles reportedly struck the center of Ukraine's Pokrovsk on Monday night, killing at least 8 people and injuring dozens. Chung Eun-ju has the latest about the war in Ukraine.
Russian missiles struck the city of Pokrovsk in Ukraine's Donetsk region twice on Monday night, killing at least 8 people, including 5 civilians. Regional Governor Pavlo Kyrylenko and other Ukrainian officials said in a statement that 67 others were injured, including 29 police officers, 7 rescue workers, and 2 children as of 7 a.m. on Tuesday. According to the governor, the strikes, which targeted the Ukrainian portion of a region partially occupied by Russia, occurred within 40 minutes of each other. The attack damaged 9- and 5-story buildings, residential houses, a hotel where foreign journalists used to stay, dining establishments, shops, and administrative buildings. Regarding the missile strikes, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said in his nightly address that he will hold Russia accountable for the attack. His remarks accompanied footage of a damaged 5-story residential building with one floor partially destroyed. Separately, the head of the Ukrainian presidential office said Monday that Russian strikes hit private homes and killed at least 2 civilians in the Kharkiv region. A military official added that Russian shelling struck a 9-story residential building in the southern city of Kherson, killing 1 person and wounding at least 3 others. The deadly attacks came just a day after officials from around 40 countries gathered in Saudi Arabia to find a peaceful resolution to the war in Ukraine. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian Security Service announced Monday it had detained an alleged Russian informant in connection with a plot to assassinate President Zelensky. Chung Eun-ju, Arirang News.
BTS member V's first solo album, Layover, will be released next month on the 8th. Announced by his agency Big Hit Music on Tuesday, the album titled Layover will consist of 6 tracks, including 1 bonus track. The album's lead-off song is Slow Dancing, a 70s romantic soul-style track with a laid-back and free-spirited feel. 5 music videos will also be released, while a bonus track is an instrumental version of Slow Dancing played on piano. V is the last member of BTS to release a solo album, which he is working on with Adore CEO Min Hee-jin, the producer of girl group New Jeans. South Korea's Labor Ministry just last week unveiled its proposal to employ 100 nannies or home helps from overseas, possibly as early as this year as part of a pilot scheme. Today, we delve deeper into this issue. Joining me is our political correspondent, Lee Si-hoo. Thanks for coming on, Si-hoo.
Hi, Jung-min.
Si-hoo, what does the government plan, this plan change the current immigration and employment policies?
So the plan is to issue non-professional employment visas to workers from overseas. Currently, only non-Koreans who already possess long-term visas are legally able to work in this field. That includes those who are on long-term visas through marriage to a Korean national or non-Korean nationals who are ethnically Korean and have an overseas Korean's visa. Now, the work visas to be given to foreign workers would restrict them from switching fields of employment.
Right, and help us understand what it means for the country's low birth rate.
As we know, South Korea's total fertility rate last year recorded a record low of 0.78, and that's the lowest in the world. As for the capital, Seoul, the rate was at 0.59, which is not even half of the OECD average. This is why Seoul City is especially keen on this issue, and also why the pilot project will begin in Seoul. Now, the cost is also another motivating factor. Currently, Korean workers in the field are usually paid around 15,000 Korean won per hour, or around $11 if they commute, and around 3.5 to 4.5 million won a month if they live with a family. But according to the government's plan, foreign workers will be paid much less, equaling around minimum wage, and will have to commute. The government is hoping that this would help parents with childcare and encourage them to have more children, especially when many of the mothers also have day jobs.
And Si-hoo, I wonder how people are perceiving this change. What are the moms and dads' reaction to this? Are they welcoming?
Well, I got a chance to speak with some parents and also some couples. They mostly welcomed the cost aspect, but there were some notable concerns. Let's take a listen.
I think with the not-so-good economic situation that we're facing, I think it would help if the cost side of things works out well.
I think more than that, policies that allow parents to look after their children themselves need to be implemented soon. Rather than employing foreign nannies, there could be policies allowing parents to leave work an hour earlier.
In childcare, interaction, emotion and culture play a big role. But South Korea does not have that cultural diversity at this moment in time, so I think it'd be a bit difficult to implement.
A working father and also a mentor for the Labor Ministry who provides real-life advice and feedback on the ministry's policy-making process echoes these concerns.
It's even difficult for those here in Korea, including the grandparents and neighbors, to thoroughly understand the mom and dad's parenting philosophy and accurately recognize the family's culture to be able to participate in childcare. The parents around me say they're worried whether the foreign workers will be able to join and participate in their family properly in what will be a unique environment.
Now, to alleviate these concerns, the government says there will be strict hiring requirements, including sufficient experience and knowledge in the field, age, linguistic capabilities, and clean criminal records.
And what are the advices to minimize cultural misunderstandings?
Well, a researcher who studies the effects of hiring these foreign workers highlighted that domestic care and childcare are different areas of expertise that require different skill sets and offer possible alternatives. Let's take a listen.
We could consider implementing a training system for those who have already spent a long time in South Korea, such as international students or foreign workers who are familiar with Korean culture and ways of life to work in these fields to help with any cultural clashes.
In regard to the cost of employing foreign workers, Dr. Lee said that government funding could help those in need.
Even if the minimum wage is applied, we could lessen the burden on parents by providing government vouchers for vulnerable social groups and ensure that foreign workers provide a quality service of work.
But what the experts and the parents all agree on is that comprehensive efforts should be made to create an environment where the parents themselves can take care of their children.
The priority should be fostering company and family culture that allows parents to take care of children through lessened work hours, parental leave, and without gender discrimination.
All right, we will have to keep an eye on future developments. Thanks, Shihu.
Thank you.
Along with the heat, South Korea is forecast to see some heavy downpours tomorrow. This round of rain will last until Friday, and gusty winds will also follow at times. Starting tomorrow, the entire nation will be under the influence of Typhoon Khanun. By Thursday, it is forecast to land on South Korea's southern coast, packing winds as fast as 35 meters per second. This is strong enough to push trains off the tracks, and on Friday, it may also pass through the Seoul metropolitan area. The typhoon will bring in a surge of heavy water vapors, causing nationwide rain. For eastern Gangwon-do province, severe downpours of up to 600 millimeters will batter the region. Southern regions, including Jeollado and Gyeongsang-do provinces, will see up to 300. The Seoul metropolitan area and the surrounding regions will see up to 150. There is a high risk of flooding and landslides, so please take extra precautions beforehand. Tomorrow, Seoul and Daegu will be starting off at 26 degrees Celsius. Rainy spells will dominate nationwide during the daytime. Highs in Seoul will get up to 33, Gwangju 34, Daegu and Busan will be topping out at 31 degrees. Central regions will see showers until Friday morning. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is News Center for tonight. Thanks for watching. A panel session coming up.